Hey, what's up? It's Emma. Welcome back to my channel. It's been a while since I have been reading a lot of classic literature, but we're back. And this week we are going to be reading exclusively classic lit. Please join me for what is hopefully going to be a relaxing, nice week of reading some bangers from ye olden days. The first pick that I will be reading this week I actually currently have in my hands right now, and it is a little book actually. This is the Penguin Little Black Classics edition of Matilda by Mary Shelley. So we're going to be starting the week off with some Mary Shelley. I'm assuming you know Mary Shelley and of course Frankenstein, one of my favorite classics, but I've never read anything else by her. For a number of years I thought that maybe Frankenstein was all she had written, although some of what she has written did try to hide itself, or rather others did try to hide it from being published, and that is very much the case with this little volume of Matilda. This was not published, I think, until like 50 years after, either after it was written or after Mary Shelley died, because when Mary Shelley showed the manuscript of Matilda to her father was like, yeah, no, that is not seeing the light of day. Matilda is a very disturbing little gothic piece about the reunion, shall we say, of a father and daughter. The father has basically never seen his daughter, but it's about the father's passion for his daughter. My mic is currently in it, obviously, but I am 36 pages through. I have less than 100 pages to go, and so far it has just been showing all of the glorious staples of romance, of the romantics. It's very lofty, very getting yourself into nature, being inspired and touched and changed by nature in some form. The book begins with the narrator much older, now on her deathbed, I believe, telling us about what an awful time her life has transpired to be because of events that have gone on in the past. And she says on her deathbed, she's actually writing the letter to a friend, the story to a friend of what occurred. She's going to tell us all what happened all those years ago, what landed her in this position, what has blighted her life, cursed her life. Her mother died shortly after childbirth, and her father was so distraught that he was just like, I don't want to see my child. I'm gonna leave. I'm gonna pull a little bit of Monte Cristo, and I'm gonna go tour all around the world, learning different things, living with different cultures, studying, and just filling my cup with all the world has to offer. And so our narrator, Diana? Why do I think her name is Diana? Because it is. Our narrator, Diana, grows up with her aunt. She's really not shown kind of any love at all. She doesn't have any friends. She's really neglected, but she grows up on her aunt's gorgeous Scottish estate right on Loch Lomond? Is it on Loch Lomond? On the Scottish lochs, and it's beautiful, and she spends her childhood just like daydreaming, inventing, until one day, 16 years after her birth, her father comes back from abroad and he's like, I am here and I kind of want to see the only family I have left. I just wanted to read some more Mary Shelley. I would like to read everything she's ever written. She's fantastic, and this is the only other piece of Shelley that I have on my shelves. We're going to start day one of getting back into classic literature with reading a little slim volume of Matilda. Anyway, welcome to the video. I'm excited to see what else this week has in store for us in terms of reading some classics. Hello, welcome to day 2 of reading classic literature. To be honest, I'm not doing super well today at all, but I did finish Matilda by Mary Shelley, and I actually really liked this a lot. This was not what I was really expecting, because I think like the marketing and especially the synopsis and the sensationalism around this tiny classic makes it seem like it's going to be principally about something else, but so much of Matilda is, for me, I mean, so much of the main substance of it and the time that we spend in it is about just deep loneliness, grief, and just aloneness, just being totally, completely alone, more often than not in nature. And I really enjoyed it. I loved our narrator, Diana, and I kind of wanted to cry while reading this, honestly. There's a lot of that dramatic oomph that I'm like, okay, this is Frankenstein. This is the same person who wrote Frankenstein for sure. There's a lot of really lovely lines. I'm gonna find you some. And there's so many parallels to Frankenstein as well. Much happier would it be for you and for me if in your frantic curiosity you tore my heart from my breast and tried to read its secrets in it as its life's blood was dropping from it. Thus you may console me by reducing me to nothing. I don't want to talk too much about the plot of these books in here. I don't want to like spoil anything. Anyone's still out here upset about like spoilers over semi-obscure, not widely popular classics, but I won't go into stuff like that. I just really deeply enjoyed her experience talking about solitude and grief and finding any kind of repose in nature, comfort in nature, and also just suffering and grief. That was such a big one. This is such a powerful, beautiful line. Mine was an idle, useless life. It was so. But say not to the lily laid prostrate by the storm, arise and bloom as before. I could be found in no state of mind which I would not willingly have exchanged for nothingness. And that's so beautiful. Like, don't say to the poor flower trampled by the huge storm, hey, get up, bloom like you bloomed before. It can't. It simply cannot. Also, I was really interested because obviously in Frankenstein, there's a lot about lightning, and Mary Shelley seems to have, a little fascination with lightning, and so much of our like modern day fixation, probably one of the main images of Frankenstein a lot of people would think of is like the lightning and the galvanization of it all. But in Matilda as well, there's quite a significant, very, very symbolic scene with lightning. It's in a scene where Diana is trying to find her father. After they've like met for the first time, a lot has happened and now they're separated again for a certain reason, and she is rushing around in the fields in the middle kind of nowhere in the countryside trying to find him. And she says to her servant, if the next flash of lightning rend not that oak tree, if the next flash of lightning rend not that oak, my father will be alive. There's actually a few passages in here about storms and lightning. I would highly recommend Matilda. It really brought me just like peace of mind. I found it a very calming, soothing experience. It's definitely more about grieving the loss of a relationship that you don't have, rather than exploring like this like dark story of a bereaved man's disturbing passion for his daughter. I just miss the romantics. I miss the romantics with a capital R. I really do love them. This is making me want to pick up some Percy, some Keats, maybe some Wordsworth even. That's rare. My life was very peaceful. I had one female servant who spent the greater part of the day at a village 2 miles off. My amusements were simple and very innocent. I fed the birds who built on the pines or among the ivy that covered the wall of my little garden, and they soon knew me. The bolder ones pecked the crumbs from my hands and perched on my fingers to sing their thankfulness. When I had lived here some time, other animals visited me, and a fox came every day for a portion of food appropriated for him and would suffer me to pat his head. I had besides many books and a harp with which, when despairing, I could soothe my spirits and raise myself to sympathy and love. Love! What had I to love? Oh, many things. There was the moonshine and the bright stars, the breezes and the refreshing rains. There was the whole earth and the sky that covers it. All lovely forms that visited my imagination. This was actually written after Frankenstein, so that's interesting. Because at its heart, it kind of is exploring very similar themes in a very broad sense, like that father figure, that creationary figure, no longer being in your life or casting you off or abandoning you in a certain sense. But some of these lines, I was just like, she could put these in. Maybe this was like left over from this like oomph that she had saved up writing Frankenstein. Do you mark my words? I have learned the language of despair. I have it all by heart, for I am despair, and a strange being am I, joyous, triumphant despair. I think I told you that when the book opens, we're hearing from Diana at a much later time in her life when she's on her deathbed, and the scenes from this and talking about death in general is just so beautiful. And again, such a nice contrast. I don't want to keep comparing it to Frankenstein, but again, such a nice contrast to the attitudes that someone like Victor in Frankenstein has towards death. Diana has like a very loving attitude towards it, not something that needs to be conquered. And around the end, she just starts talking to the aspects of nature, the aspects of the world around her, and it's so wonderful. Your trees and waters will still exist, moved by your winds, or still beneath the eye of noon, though what I have felt about ye, and all my dreams which have often strangely deformed thee, will die with me. You will exist to reflect other images in other minds, and ever will remain the same, although your reflected semblance vary in 1,000 ways, changeable as the hearts of those who view thee. One of these fragile mirrors that ever doted on thine image is about to be broken, crumbled to dust. But ever-teeming nature will create another and another, and thou wilt lose naught by my destruction. First classic of this video read. I really, really loved this. Not what I was expecting, and I want to read more from Mary. I wish we had a little bit more. I don't know what else is left. I think this one says Mary and Maria. That is that one. I'm actually really sad that it's over and that it was as short as it was, and I will be returning to this one. So that means we're gonna go pick classic number 2. I guess this is technically day 3 of reading classic literature. I'm really excited about our next pick because I have had this book on my TBR for so long. It is a favorite book of one of my favorite writers ever, and I've been meaning to read it for years, and so I started it. I'm a little tiny bit of the way through, and our second book for this video is Niels Lyhne by Jens Peter Jacobsen. This one is translated from the Danish by Tina Nunali. This is one that I have no idea what it's about, like, at all. The copy doesn't even tell me, because to be honest, the back of this copy is filled with praises from so many famous authors that it's actually insane. So many well-known people, which, like, I'll read you what they've said because it's just such high praise. You guys gotta stay hydrated. Here's the lineup on the back. We have Rilke, we have Sigmund Freud, we have Henrik Ibsen, we have Thomas Mann, and we have Hermann Hesse, all singing this man's praises to the high heavens. Rilke says it's a book of splendors and depths. You will experience the great happiness of reading this book for the first time and will move through its countless surprises as if in a new dream. Freud says that Jacobsen has made a more profound impression on my heart than any other reading in recent years. Ibsen says, I dare say it is among the most exceptional that our time has produced. Thomas Mann, Jacobsen, who has had the greatest influence on my style so far. That's really interesting. I read Thomas Mann for the first time last year, loved The Magic Mountain, and so I'm really excited to see another influence of his. And then Hermann Hesse, Hesse just goes on and on. 48. I'm 48 pages through, which is chapter 5. I believe, again, not knowing anything about it, but so far it seems to be a coming of age of Niels Lyhne, who is the young boy that we follow at the beginning of the novel. He's living in Denmark, of course, and we're following him growing up, his mother, his father. He has a tutor. So far there's this like not elder, but older than him woman who has entered into his life, and basically all these people who are having an impact on him. I can really see the writing being an inspiration for at least like Mann and Rilke on the back, because a lot of it is very similar, and the way that he's writing so far is really beautiful. There's so much depth to it. Like, he just really goes into every detail of someone's personality or why they're acting a certain way, yeah, just in such beautiful prose, to be honest. I've already underlined a lot because there is a scene where Niels's tutor becomes obsessed with the young woman Adele, who's come from, I think, the capital, and she's out now in the countryside because she's very ill, and his tutor becomes obsessed with Adele, and Adele is like, no, no, no. But Bigham, who is the tutor, just has these beautiful lines. You can't love me at all. Oh, that's terrible. There's nothing in my soul that I wouldn't murder or degrade if only I might win you by doing so. I also feel very lucky to, like Rilke said, be reading it for the first time, the great happiness of reading this book for the first time, because I've had this in the back of my mind for so long, wanting to read this after Rilke mentions it in Letters to a Young Poet, which I read in high school, so needless to say, it's been a while. I feel like, I don't know if this is going to be super sad. I don't know. I'm just getting a very heavy feeling from it so far. Oh my gosh, you're still here and you still want to talk about classics? Amazing, because do I have some updates. The chronic pain is chronic paining today, so I'm just gonna do some light movement while I talk to you about my love for Niels Lyhne. I hope I'm pronouncing that correctly because I'm loving this book. Oh my gosh. First of all, it's a very special feeling to read something that you know someone that you grew up like admiring and just having like is a very big source of comfort in your life. Like knowing that you're reading something that they loved is such a special feeling. And wow, the writing is really lovely. And so yes, ultimately this book is a coming of age of Niels, and you follow him from a young child all the way until, I don't know yet because I'm not done, but I'm imagining maybe like mid-20s, 30s, mid-20s, mid-30s age, and you follow him growing up at different places, meeting new people, forming relationships, and a lot of it I think is tending towards my guess that it was maybe going to be a little bit darker or a bit more melancholy than joyous and happy, kind of, because I've actually learned a little bit more about the author, about Jacobsen, and what he was going through while he was writing this book. So he didn't live super long. Unfortunately, he did catch tuberculosis, but I think I read that he survived 10 years after like that original diagnosis, which for the time period was great, was like amazing. But for those 10 years, like so much of those 10 years was just focused on surviving and like making sure he didn't die. And so writing this book took so long. I think the back said that some years he would only write a few sentences, and so this book was composed over a very, very long time. And as the author suffers more and more with his sickness, like the book also, you know, gets a little bit darker. I've been tabbing, as you can see. I've been underlining a lot because I've been loving what I've been reading. The way that he writes is so wonderful. This is kind of at the moment in history when we're getting a little bit divided and things are really shifting under the ground of literature, and things are changing more from romanticism more towards early modernism, the seeds of what would become modernism, so that realism that everyone on the back is talking about. And it just, the writing is so great. He was weary of himself, of cold thoughts and intellectual dreams. Life a poem, not when you perpetually went around inventing your life instead of living it. Oh, how meaningless it was, empty, empty, empty. This hunting for yourself, slyly observing your own tracks, in a circle of course. This pretending to throw yourself into the stream of life and then at the same time sitting and angling for yourself and fishing yourself up in some peculiar disguise. He eventually decides that he wants to be a poet, and so pretty early on we learn that that's the path and journey he chooses for himself, which is again why I can see Rilke would enjoy this so much and why he mentions it in Letters to a Young Poet. The women. Again, I can see so much of Rilke's own philosophy in here, and just, I mean, not even like a personal philosophy, right? Just equality, guys, it's just equality. I remember reading Rilke in high school, and like up until that point, generally, I think all the classics, most classics you read, certainly as a young woman living where I was living and reading whatever books they were given to us in high school or whatever I wanted to read for myself when I got really into classics, they were of course not having very nice things to say about women. I think Rilke was the first person, the first writer, the first male writer, certainly that I had come upon up until that point, who had just had wonderful things to say about women, and it was so surprising and fresh and just so relieving to read as a young girl, and it was just like so wonderful to hear his thoughts, and this one as well. Jacobsen as well. Jacobsen, you're a real one. The women in here are just wonderful to behold. There's about 3 or 4 principal women characters. This is not a book with a large cast of characters by any means. It's very small and contained because Niels' life is very small and contained and he doesn't know many people. The second woman he really meets in Copenhagen is Mrs. Boye, and what she talks about and what she kind of introduces Lyhne to is just, I don't know. She's so great, and the lines are so great, and it's like he just kind of nailed all of this. She says how strange it is to yearn for oneself, and I long so often, so very often for myself as a young girl, and I love her like someone I've been intimately close to, and with whom I've shared life and happiness and everything. Time and time again, the women that Lyhne comes across are just like, it is absolutely ridiculous, the standards that is put upon us to act a certain way, especially in relationships, when so often the man is like, oh, women are so pure, and like the ideal that they have of them, and this putting them on a pedestal and like worshiping them and blah blah blah, but it's really all this image that is completely false. It's this like illusion of them that they've created in their minds, and she goes on about how ridiculous it is. They confuse us by throwing themselves in the dust before us and worshiping us instead of taking us as we are and simply loving us. And Niels is like, oh, but they make you like a god, isn't that amazing? Like, don't you want to be treated that way? Don't you want to be like seen in that light? Like, don't you want someone to take your image and create this picture of you? And she says, that's exactly what is so insulting. We are godly enough the way we are. But whatever in us does not match up with his ideal image has to be banished, if not by subjugation, then by indifference, by systematic neglect, by denying all developments. I call that violence against our nature. I call that conditioning. I'm very glad that I picked Niels Lyhne up to read in this video. And I think at least on Goodreads, it only had like barely, not even 4,000 ratings, so a little over 100 pages through, so I have, I think, a little less than 100 pages to go. There was one scene in here last night that my jaw just dropped, and I was like, oh my gosh, this is the hottest thing I've read all year, and it's in a classic where, like, everyone has every piece of their clothes on, no one's doing nothing crazy, okay? It's a scene with a rocking chair. It is definitely now, I think, turning towards a little bit more sad and depressing for sure, because his life is not really going the way, obviously, he plans, you know, right there with you, buddy. I think I would like to finish this tonight. That's the goal. I did finish Niels Lyhne last night. Not expecting, I think I was expecting, you know what, I'm not gonna say anything. I'm not gonna say a darn thing, but I just love when some classics you read just end in ways. Second book of this video is done, and I really thoroughly enjoyed it. Really loved it. Like I said, it's a book that I've been meaning to read for years. It's been like a dream to read this book. I highly recommend Niels Lyhne if you like Thomas Mann. If you like Thomas Mann, if you like Rilke, this is all tension on each other, influencing each other. A lot of this does ultimately deal with someone who is born at a time in history when there's so much tension, there's so much back and forth. He feels like he's either born 20 years too early, 20 years too late. It's ultimately really sad. He is compared a lot, the character in here, the main character, is compared in the afterword to Hamlet. In my mind, he's definitely a bit, I don't know if ineffectual, I guess, I mean, you would call Hamlet a bit ineffectual, but I don't really know. That's not totally my opinion, honestly, but I do think also if you like Portrait of the Artist as a Young Man by James Joyce, that is obviously a much later evolution of the attitudes that are swirling around in here, dealing with religion. Niels, like I said, very early on tries to cast it off, his struggle against that, his struggle in the time period when like the seeds of very, very early modernism are brewing. It's just a really special book, to be honest. There's so much in it. Also, Niels really reminded me a little bit of, Hans Castorp in the Magic Mountain, and a lot of this is also similar to the Magic Mountain, specifically in one really particular way that I'm not going to say. However, it's also very similar because it deals with tuberculosis. I mean, so many works from this period deal with consumption or tuberculosis, and knowing that the author was dying of it while he was writing this obviously colors a lot of it. I think it might be high time to read Everything is Tuberculosis by John Green. It's so affecting and pervasive and tints and changes so much of the society and the literature and the art and what you're writing about. Another recommendation, if you like Niels Lyhne, or if you want something similar, this one by Rilke. This is The Notebooks of Matilda Brigge. I love this. This is the only novel that Rilke ever wrote, and like now having the two of them, I can see how inspired he was by Jacobsen. And yeah, this one similarly follows a young man in Northern Europe. A lot of this book is set in Paris. I'm gonna stop blabbing about this book, and I think we're gonna pick our third book of this video. I don't really know what I want to pick up, what I'm in the mood for. I think we're gonna have to go through the shelves and pick together. It's so dreary out. I do not like spring. Okay, let's see what we got. I'm seeing some penguins over there. Antarctica? Okay. Tolstoy, not in the mood, bud. We could bounce straight to Rilke, but I kind of want to let that breathe a little bit. If you look to your right, you're going to see my modern classics. I'm kind of feeling a modern classic. We've been going a bit chronological so far, from Shelley to Jacobsen. So who's okay, what if I read the whole Bible in this video? No. Okay, these are my little modern, and there's one on here that I just gasped, a little gersp about, and to be honest, it's also on the list. I've read this, The Tunnel, Crucible, nah. Read this. Not in the mood for A Clockwork Orange, I'll tell you. The one that I was really looking at is this guy right here. This is the Futurological Congress by Stanislaw. This is on the list. This one is on the list. I bought this last year, and I really want to read this. He wrote one of my faves, Solaris, and that's all I read from him, and I really want to read more. Also, I love the quote, "This room guaranteed bomb-free from the management." Eon has been sent back to Earth to attend... Eon. Whoa, I see what you did. You almost put that one past me. He's been sent back to Earth to attend the 8th Futurological Congress in smog-bound, overpopulated Costa Rica. Holed up with an assortment of scientists in a luxury hotel, fully equipped with tear gas sprinklers in case things get out of hand. He finds himself shot, frozen, and thawed out in a future beyond anything he could have ever imagined. I read something that sounds very similar to this, which was, funnily enough, also a Danish piece of literature earlier this year called Freezing Point. Ooh, we could read some Hemingway, honestly. I need a ladder. I can't reach that at all. So I have like 3 that I'm thinking about, so let's choose. I have the 2 that I pulled off, Lem and Hemingway. I love reading Hemingway. It's been a while since I've read Hemingway. Last one was, I think it was A Farewell to Arms, which just wrecked me. And I miss his writing style. I love his writing style. I love how just like, it is raining. I was cold. It was raining and I was cold. I love that. So these two, I think I'm leaning towards the Futurological Congress, simply because in our time, which I originally bought for uni and then never ended up having to read, this one is a collection of short stories. The other one that I pulled off is actually, there's a stack of books here that you can't see. It's on the bottom, so you'll have to believe me. It's The Enchanted April by Elizabeth von Arnim, and it is April now, sadly, which means maybe I should be reading a book called The Enchanted April in April. However, the problem is that the April that they're talking about in that classic is the Italian April. And the Italian April is very different to the Canadian April, especially because it's on, like, you know, the coast, like kind of more southern coast in Portofino, I think. And that's not the weather that's happening here. And then when I saw it and I bought this book this year, I was like, oh, I should read it in April. It's called The Enchanted April. I'm thinking maybe their Enchanted April might be a good book for me to read in Canadian June. Put an audiobook hold on it anyway and see if it comes in while we're filming this video. See what happens with that. But yeah, I think I'm going to be choosing between these two for now. And I think I'm going to start with Lyhne because it's been like 5 years, I think, since I read Solaris. You can probably tell that I'm kind of trying to choose smaller books in this video, and if you want to know why, it's because there's someone behind me. Big Dick, Moby Dick, which I didn't really think this through very much because I'm foolishly trying to read it at the same time as this classics video, so it's just a lot. Let's give it a shot. This is like bat bananas crazy. I don't know what day it is anymore of reading classic lit. I've been having quite a good time and it feels nice to get back to something that I loved for so long. I think I just got a bit, not even burnt out of classic lit, just like burnt out in my own life, which I'm still kind of going through, but this has been really nice. And yeah, just a small little tangent, but I used to make primarily, I think, classic lit videos a while ago, years ago, and this is just, I think, a sign that if you've been a bit intimidated or you're looking for something new to read, or even if you're in a reading slump or anything, just like go pick up some old books because they don't make them like this anymore. Let's talk about the Futurological Congress, because what the damn hell. I'm gonna take this bookmark out, but I am 72 pages through. This is nothing like Solaris. It's very different. The first thing I just want to say, it's literally like cracked out of its mind. The prose and the act of reading it is actually so dizzying and a bit distressing because it's just like wave after wave of things keep happening, like crazy, wild, just a wild time keeps happening to our guy Eon, who's staying at this hotel in the first half of the book, because there's quite a clear divide in the book, like split right down the middle, which I'll get to probably later. So he gets to Costa Rica and he's staying at the hotel, right, which is supposed to be for futurologists who are gonna discuss the problems of the future. Most of those problems, of course, being war, overpopulation is a really big one. They're gonna talk about everything like that. First things first, it's so funny. One of the first lines is, "Inasmuch as this hotel was completely demolished in the course of our conference, I can't be accused of making a plug when I say that the place was absolutely first rate." They're staying at a Hilton and it's 100 floors tall and he's staying on the 100th floor. But when he gets into his room, he realizes that the room is filled with things that he is like, why is this here? Because obviously as a cosmonaut, he's coming back to Earth and it's not really, like, he doesn't know all the customs anymore. It has a 10-foot crowbar propped up in a corner of the bathroom. It has a camouflage cape in the closet, a sack of hardtack under the bed. Lawless. Earth has become a bit even more cracked, further cracked. There are so many protests going on, both in terms of like the population of Costa Rica and what is going on there in the future. They're having a ton of protests, but there's also so many different groups of people staying at the hotel who are organizing all these different things. He meets a man who is on a mission to take down the Pope, for example. Like, there's just so many different crazy things happening. And the way that it's talked about is so nonchalant. Like, there is so many people being held at gunpoint.
Like, he's standing next to someone at breakfast who gets gunned down, and then he's just like, so then, after hurriedly changing my blood-spattered shirt, I went to the hotel bar for breakfast. The room, for example, has its own palm tree grove in which an all-girl orchestra played Bach while performing a cleverly choreographed striptease. I could have done quite well without all this. I'm loving to talk about the hotel, but again, like, if you can see the lines of text, like, it's just sentence after sentence of wildness. It's hard to keep up with. It's dizzying. It's way too much. It's too much. It's just like, I don't know where I am. I need to go sit down. I need to go get some air. So like, the conference never actually properly takes place. Like, it's trying to take place amidst all of this hoopla, and he goes to his room. I think the first night there, it's just, yeah, I can't, it's acid. I feel like I'm on an acid trip. Anyway, he gets poisoned by drinking the tap water in his room because there's a substance that's been put into the water that is called LTN, which is short for Love Thy Neighbor. It's like the Love Thy Neighbor chems. So you feel utmost benevolence to your fellow human being, and you like drop everything, lambast? What is that word? For not being a good person, and you basically just want to do anything that you can to help your fellow people out, and it takes over your entire being. The government is trying to make everyone kind of, or like at least the rebel groups or the protesters, take this chemical so that they'll stop protesting. Things from here just go so wrong. Like, I don't want to, like, I can't even spoil anything or give it away because it's like, frankly, too much. The amount of hallucinations that get mixed into the cocktail is just, you go on a ride, you go on a trip. Our poor guy Eon gets shot in the chest because he thinks he's hallucinating. Like, he never wakes up from his hallucination, even though reality has caught up to him, and he gets shot in the chest, and eventually this is the thing that, like, said on the back, makes him wake up in the future. I said I read Freezing Point by another Danish author a few months ago, and this is becoming really, really similar because, like we talked about, he wakes up in the far future in 2039. I was really liking to talk about the hotel because as the Hilton, I love hotels, if you don't know, it's like one of my main things that I love if it's in literature or if I get to go to a hotel. I think they're fascinating. So because it's like this 100-floor huge space that contains everything within it, we get like this little world of the hotel, which is also itself quite a privileged place, and the people within, including Eon, don't really hear too much or know too much about what is going on in Costa Rica or even further abroad or around the world, and so they're quite contained. And then eventually when the protests and everything get into the hotel, and obviously like he's like, yo, this hotel got literally blown apart, we see the wider world get in there, and then eventually of course he wakes up into the wider world himself. I didn't think that in a book about hotels I was going to get graced with my number one interest, which is glaciers, but there's mention of glaciers because when Eon is frozen down, he really gets that freezingness, I guess, and he just keeps going over all these frozen images and sensations. Glaciers still haunt my dreams, they will not go away. I shiver, turn blue, freeze over, frostbitten, snow-ridden, icebound until dawn. About halfway through the book, you get catapulted into Eon's 2039 journal that he is now keeping about what society has become, especially again with this freezing technology that has, I don't know, been invented to preserve you and keep you alive in the most dire of circumstances. Not enjoying this though as much as I wanted to be honest. I think it's just like a helter-skelter kind of pace that I don't enjoy reading because it's like I just can't breathe within it. The future that Eon wakes up into is also a bit insane because as much as he wasn't able to get his bearings as someone coming back to Earth in the first half of the book, waking up so many years later in the same place is probably even worse. The second half in his journals, to be honest, focuses a lot on the new language, lingo, vocabulary of the world in order to introduce us in a sense to what this society prizes most. I'm not really I thought I would have more fun with that kind of language as a way to introduce the future of it all, but I'm not. And The other thing that's in the future is that there's a lot of talk, like obviously from the Love Thy Neighbor chemical to other things that have been invented, but so much of the future he wakes up into relies very heavily on pharmaceuticals to keep the peace, which is really funny because I just watched the movie Equilibrium last month with Christian Bale. I love bad movies. I really love bad movies, and this was pretty subpar, but I really liked it. There's honestly a lot of similarities between Equilibrium and the future that Eon wakes up to in here, because all these people are taking chemicals to make them not fall prey to humanity's worst traits, I guess you could say, which is a lot of what the movie Equilibrium is about. So funny. That movie is so funny. Most of all, I just love the fashion in that film. I was like, I want every outfit that these guys are wearing. Looks so cool. There's cool things. There's some really cool concepts in here. Like in the future, books are no longer read, but eaten. They're not made of paper, but of some informational substance, fully digestible and sugar-coated. A little over halfway through, I think, and I'm not loving it. Definitely does not touch Solaris in my opinion, but of course this is completely different. This is just like a wild romp of a time, whereas the tone in Solaris is quite serious and melancholy and somber and very uneasy. The tone in here is just absurd. Like, this is absurdity. So yeah, I'm gonna read more of this, probably finish it today, and I'll be back with my full thoughts on this. But yeah. I am very happy though that we have hotels and glaciers mentioned in the same book. What are the odds?
Is really late now, but I did want to update that I finished the Futurological Congress. Definitely least favorite book of the video so far. I think just for my own personal taste, the pacing and the overall fiber, shall we say, of the world and the structure of the plot and how Lem chose to narrate the future in this book was not to my liking. The whole book was just extremely fever-pitched, like acid trip, very just like coming at you in waves. You can't catch a breath. So in the end, I do think the Futurological Congress ended up being very meta because it ended up being the book itself. Like, that was the Futurological Congress that you and Eon are kind of having with the world that you get thrust into, both in terms of the Costa Rica half of the book and then the more future half of the book after he gets frozen and reanimated in a new world. New World is horrifying, and I'm not going to spoil anything, but yeah, in the end I would, yes, recommend this one if you like Equilibrium, the stuff in there. You know what? Never mind. Let me not mention this movie again. More so if you like The Matrix. If you like The Matrix, pick this up. If you like Freezing Point, these two are also very similar because they both deal with being frozen down and being woken up in a new world. And also if you like the very frenetic pace of things like Number 9 Dream. Did I just see someone on the counter? Did you see that? I totally did. Truthfully, I didn't really find myself having a good time with this. If you want to feel like you're having, you know, a hallucination, yes, pick it up. But this is one of those books that I now enjoy having read to be left with and thinking about it rather than the actual reading experience. I did not really enjoy it, to be honest. And if you are wanting to read Stanislaw Lem, who I totally recommend, I forgot to tell you this one was translated from the Polish by Michael Kandel. Thanks, because yeah, thank you to the translators out there. This is not the Lem that I would recommend you pick up first. I would highly recommend picking up Solaris, checking that out. But we have another book read. I think it came out in 1971, so it is very much concerned with like the drug scene and how that affects things. I don't want to say too much of it, but yeah, if you want stuff about pharmaceuticals, drugs, chemical warfare, all that stuff, mind melding, stuff like that, yes. And also Shatter Me?
Shatter Me by Tahar Amalfi. Reading something like that did make me want to go back, way back in time, because I was really having such a good time with Shelley and Jacobsen, and I was just like, I want more from the 1800s. That's kind of the classics that I'm wanting to pick up because it's just nice to have that old language. And yeah, I was just missing it with something as fast-paced as this. And so for our last book of the video, I think because tomorrow is supposed to be the last day of this challenge, I wanted something we could hopefully finish together. And anyway, the book that called to me is not one that I've mentioned before yet, and it's this beautiful little volume of selected poems of Emily Dickinson. It's so pretty. So this is the last book we're going to be reading for this video. I already started it and I'm really liking it. I haven't read Emily Dickinson for a while since I had to read a lot of her stuff in an American lit course that I took at uni, and it's nice to be back. I've been underlining a lot. We'll try to update this tomorrow because right now it is late and I'm actually just downloading a new Star Wars game to play and try out. I think this would be a nice way to start your morning, waking up reading some Dickinson. I will leave you with one poem right now before bed, okay? Sit down, grab your hot milk. I don't know. Past is such a curious creature. To look her in the face, a transport might reward us, or a disgrace. Unarmed, if any meet her, I charge him fly. Her rusty ammunition might yet reply. I'll see you tomorrow for the last day of the week.
Good morning, everyone. This morning is the last day of reading classic lit for this little video challenge, and I did end up finishing the selected poems of Emily Dickinson. I really enjoy the look of this edition. I've never seen these before. It's the Fall River Press one, and yeah, I really liked it. The poems in here though were arranged thematically, so that's not my favorite arrangement, to be honest. It gets very fatiguing reading like 20 short poems in a row about the sun, and then at the end it gets kind of depressing reading like 30 poems in a row about death and dying. Yeah, not my favorite arrangement, but that's okay. I don't think this was really a book you were supposed to sit down and read front to back within like a 24-hour time period. Anywho, I love Emily Dickinson. I love Emily Dickinson so much. I haven't really been drawn to picking up poetry collections in a long while, but her poems I just love, and I also miss the feeling of like reading something that's a little bit like a tiny puzzle when you like scan through some verses and you're like, ooh, I want to like figure out a little bit what's going on here, or if Dickinson is saying something in a roundabout way or like hiding a little bit of information in her poems. I really miss that, and I underlined a lot of favorites. This one was very, very nice. This is the one that begins, I started early, took my dog. I started early, took my dog, and visited the sea. The mermaids in the basement came out to look at me, and frigates in the upper floor extended hempen hands, presuming me to be a mouse aground upon the sands. But no man moved me till the tide went past my simple shoe, and past my apron, and my belt, and past my bodice too, and made as he would eat me up, as wholly as a dew, upon a dandelion sleeve. And then I started too. And he followed close behind. I felt his silver heel upon my ankle, then my shoes would overflow with pearl. Until we met the solid town, no man he seemed to know, and bowing with a mighty look at me, the sea withdrew. That is lovely. That is one I really want to memorize. Love it. I started early, took my dog, and visited the sea. Other things, I just love how she says things. Like, I frankly just love how she says things. This one was just a very small little line about a rock on the road. The rock whose coat of elemental brown a passing universe put on. Excuse me? Like, that's just so lovely. It's just such a lovely way to think about things when you look at a rock and you look at the brown shades and like the pattern of it, whatever. And she's like, yeah, a passing universe painted the color on that whenever the rock was created. It's just like, there's so much appreciation for everything in these poems. It's really beautiful. I also love the more existential poems of her struggling with either her faith or with society, because Emily Dickinson was very famously quite a hold-up hermit. I think my favorite themes that she explored in here were her poems on memory. I love that. One of my favorites from hers always has been, one need not be a house to be haunted. The mind has corridors surpassing material space. Yeah, it does. But this one I hadn't read yet, and I loved this. Remembrance has a rear and front, 'tis something like a house. It has a garret also for refuge and the mouse. Besides, the deepest cellar that ever mason hewed, look to it, by its fathoms ourselves be not pursued. Nice. I just also love how these are little like mind exercises as well. It's not something you, all of them at least, you can just read and immediately understand. You need to work a little bit. I love that. Some of these lines just absolutely staked me through the heart, I guess. They say that time assuages. Time never did assuage. An actual suffering strengthens, as sinews do, with age. So this was lovely, and I want to read more. And yeah, anyway, welcome to the end of our week reading Classic Lit. I think we did 7 days, and we finished 4 books. A little summary, we did Matilda by Mary Shelley. Absolutely loved this. This was not what I was expecting, and I just loved it. I miss Shelley, and I just love her. Love her so much. This was a big hit for me. Really recommend it. Then we read the book I've been waiting to read for like 10 years probably. Niels Lyhne by Jens Peter Jacobsen. Recommended to me by none other than Rilke. He recommended to me personally. No. This was also great. I love this so much. Highly recommend as well. And yeah, would also like to read some more Jacobsen now. And then we had the Futurological Congress by Stanislaw. This was the one that I did not love the most in this video, to be honest. Just was not really to my taste in terms of the narrative style and the franticness of it all. I was just like, I would like to breathe a little bit, and I got to breathe a lot in Matilda because things are very slow, melancholy, subdued, floating almost. And then finally we read another banger with the selected poems of Emily Dickinson. Love this. If I had to rate these, I don't know, in terms of enjoyment, because that's really all my ratings are for these. They're each excellent pieces in their own right, obviously. Futurological Congress would come in 4th for me, probably followed by Emily Dickinson, although like I love these so much. This is so hard to rate at all. And then, I don't know, these two are kind of tied, Matilda and Niels Lyhne. I just think, depending on the day that you ask me, I would have a different answer. Because you've asked me today, or I've asked myself today, I think Niels Lyhne would come in 3rd. And actually, surprisingly, Matilda would rank 1st for me. I really love this. I love the way that Mary Shelley writes. That's it. I just love her. That is our little roundup for this video. I'm really happy with each of these. We got some English, some Danish, some Polish, some American. Good old time. Really had a good time with these. So yeah, let me know if you want to see more videos like this, because I feel like this just like refreshed my spirit. I feel so much more like ready to just read more classics and more classics and more classics, because for a while now classic lit hasn't been making up the bulk of what I've been reading, and I really do miss it. So let me know if like my classic lovers are still out there, if you still want to see that on my channel. And yeah, I recommend all of those books to you. I hope you got some recommendations. Also, thank you. 2 of these books were given to me by viewers, Niels Lyhne and Emily Dickinson's poetry. Thank you so much. Highly appreciate you. Yeah, if there are books you would like to see me tackle in our next episode of Reading Classic Lit or Classic Lit Reading Vlogs, or another week spent reading classics, please let me know. Thanks so much for hanging out. Thank you for choosing to spend your precious time here. And until my next video, that's when I'll see you. Yeah, no, that's it. That's all. Ciao.